Hello, this is Eric, aka Wolf Bitten, and you are here with Hot Topics. How are you doing today? We've got just a short little discussion going on here today. I want to talk to you a little bit about the problem with talking with internet atheists. Now, I want to make something really clear. I've known and associated with and had friends among just about every demographic in the world that you can think of. I know some people who are agnostic, atheist, um, of every religious persuasion, of no religious persuasion, that I get along with wonderfully. We were able to sit down, we're able to communicate, we're able to talk about you name it. And we don't have a problem. But then they're not your typical internet atheist. They're not your typical Facebook atheists. You see, I've found that your typical internet atheists, especially among the millennials today, are just absolutely not even capable of having a discussion. Um, they're not here for a discussion. Most of them you could count on as being anti-theist. And anybody that is theist of any sort is instantly open for derision. There's no talking to these people. There's no rational discussion among these people. And you're going to see this in the audience today, I believe. Let me see. Geology Girl and yes, Where's Thorn? Two of the members of Nemesis are here, I see, and probably more. That's okay. I'm glad that you're actually in the audience. You see, most of these people, like this little group right here that calls themselves Nemesis, and I have to say that laughingly, Nemesis. You know, they must have got that from Star Trek Next Generation or something. And they pictured themselves as some sort of arch adversary. But the way I see them, they're a bunch of bumbling clowns. Um, these people aren't capable of a rational discussion, and they've proven so in several of my broadcasts. I had one, for instance, where Jordan tried to come on imitating a Brit, and he got so many things wrong. And then it was when he was busted, and I did this in a nice way. I let him talk for over 40 minutes. And the whole time he was getting one thing wrong after another, and I kept having to set him straight. And things were fine until he basically called me a liar and told me that I couldn't produce some facts that I was basing something on there. The why soft tissue and dinosaur bones prove that evolution is impossible. So instead of a rational discussion, he wanted to call me a liar. And when I went to pull up this stuff, he dropped his British accent and dropped his civility and cussed everybody out and dropped off the air, showing the maturity of an emotional 11-year-old. And that's what most of these people are all about. You see, they can't come on and discuss anything rationally. And I'm going to prove this to you. Let's see here. Invite. Okay. I am going to invite you to come on up and spend a little bit of time discussing with me. Let's see if you're actually capable. Prove me wrong. I'd like to see myself proven wrong here. I really would. I'd like to see you capable of a rational discussion. There is the link to drop on. If any of my naysayers would like to come on and show that I'm wrong and that they're capable of a rational scientific discussion. The funny thing about these guys is they claim to be here to be sharing science, to be preserving and protecting science. And yet that's the last thing in the world they know the first thing about. They don't know a thing about science. So I want to share something with you here, though. Um, this is Richard Dawkins. Now, this is Richard Dawkins expressing his opinion. And these young millennials here just seem to idolize Dawkins and idolize Aaron Ra. And in my opinion, Richard Dawkins is not a scientist. He claims to be a biologist, but what he is an activist. He hasn't accomplished anything scientifically. He's written a book called The God Delusion. He's written a book called The Blind Watchmaker, in which he actually does say regarding the Cambrian explosion that these fossils just suddenly appear in fully formed species with no evolutionary history. And that it doesn't reflect either gradualism or punctuated equilibrium, either one. But what it does reflect is creation. And yet him and Richard Gould reject creationism. Now, in my opinion, he ceases to become a scientist there when he's willing to throw something off the table just because he has a bias against it. Now, let's see what he says here about Christians. I think this is rather interesting.
Mock them, ridicule them. In public. Don't fall for the...
Mock them. Ridicule them in public. That's all these folks are about. Mocking Christians, ridiculing Christians in public is the best that they can do. And they do this in exchange for a scientific discussion. Now, look, I have put out the link for my adversaries, my critics, to step up, and none of them are stepping up. I wonder why. Well, it's really no big question as to why. I'll tell you why. Because they're simply not capable of this discussion. Okay, Richard Dawkins has published over 30 peer-reviewed scientific papers. He hasn't done anything, kid. He hasn't done anything. He's not known for anything in science. It doesn't matter how many papers he put his name on. None of them have won him any acclaim. The only thing that has won Mr. Dawkins acclaim are the books that he's written and his anti-theist stance. That's the only acclaim that he has. I had an atheist. I was on a friend's broadcast yesterday, and he's a good friend. He's a Christian. We don't see eye to eye on several doctrines, but I love the man. He's a good, sweet-natured person. And hello, Bill. How you doing, brother? 1 + 1 = potato. Yes, sir. That seems to be the atheist argument. At least among these anti-theists. And you're going to see, Brother Bill, that none of these fellows are going to come up and have this discussion. I've got some things to put before them that we can discuss. So let's see. Yeah, they just don't want to come up. So anyway, an atheist came on his channel while I was sitting there talking with my brothers in Christ, and he immediately began to attack me. And he had a few things wrong. First of all, he didn't even understand what I was saying, and jumped to the conclusion, attacking me for something that I didn't even say. He didn't understand what I was saying. And secondly, when I brought up Richard Dawkins and not being a scientist, but being an activist, and that he, in front of thousands of people, stands and tells his followers to mock Christians and ridicule them in public. And He said, well, no, he didn't. He never said that. He swore up and down he never said that. So I had my buddy play what you just saw, Richard Dawkins saying just that. And then he began to attack something else that he misunderstood. So will you be silenced? The only way I'm going to silence you, Horsethorn, is with science. If you come up here and you have a discussion with me, I'll prove, number one, you guys don't know the first thing about science. I'll prove, number two, that Christians, at least I do, know more about science than your whole clan. And that you guys don't stand a chance. And that what you do, instead of having an open discussion, you want to try to have a gang fight where all you do is insult. Well, that's not a scientific discussion. So if you guys aren't capable of this discussion, that's okay. We can keep showing people that you're not capable. There's the link again if you'd like to come up. So, Jordan, for instance, Jordan had no idea that biological materials have half-lives. He didn't have the slightest idea, like DNA, for instance, has a half-life. These guys, he thought collagen was carbon. He thought carbon-14 had a half-life of 117 years. All of these things just totally, totally wrong. So, let's see. You'll be presenting science. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I am going to be showing scientific evidence of God in an upcoming broadcast. So stay tuned for that. It certainly is more than you have for evolution. As a matter of fact, I still don't see any of you stepping up. I would be glad to ask you a few questions on a few very simple scientific questions regarding evolution. And let's see if you're able to answer them. I can assure you, you won't be, because you don't know the topic. That's why I said to an atheist, when you're attempting to have a discussion, all they're going to do is live in denial and say 1 + 1 = potato. They don't understand evolution. They don't understand genetics. They don't understand what modern genetics have taught us and what our breakthroughs in paleontology have taught us. They don't understand that they don't have any time for evolution. They don't understand that because, you see, these dinosaur bones, they prove, okay, Mary Schweitzer has put out tons of papers, my friends. Now, Mary Schweitzer is the Christian lady that discovered soft tissue in dinosaur bones that went viral in the early 2000s, around 2005 or so. Now, she actually found it before this, but it didn't go viral until then. But see, she fell under heavy ridicule. Now, why did she fall under heavy ridicule? Mary Schweitzer fell under heavy ridicule from fellow scientists because they said this is impossible. You did not find soft biological tissue in dinosaur bones. This is absolutely preposterous. It's absolutely impossible. Now, Mary Schweitzer is a shrewd woman. That's something that I've noticed about her. She's not going to do anything until she is ready to back up and support what she says, what she does. And proving to her naysayers that, yes, this is biological material. I know the difference between biofilm and blood vessels and red blood cells and collagen. There is a huge difference between them. And I know what this difference is. So she earned her PhD by proving to her naysayers that this was soft tissue. These were actual blood vessels. These were actual red blood cell structures that she found. This was actual collagen that she found. So there was the problem then, was trying to prove how can this possibly be, because people still kept ridiculing her, even though they started to accept the fact that, okay, this is biological material, but what's wrong? Something is definitely wrong. Mary Schweitzer then wrote a couple of papers. She wrote one in 2011 where she goes back in time to actual peer-reviewed papers that were put into peer-reviewed journals that demonstrated we've been finding soft tissue in dinosaur bone for decades. She carried it back to 1909. That was just one paper she wrote. She wrote that in 2011, and very few atheists, very few evolutionists are aware of this. I can pull it up if they'd like to see it. So, then in 2014, she wrote her study where she actually did experiments. You see, a lot of people proposed possible ways in peer review that these soft tissues could possibly be preserved for 80 million years. But none of them did an experiment that showed and proved that these things could last 80 million years. Not one of them. Mary Schweitzer, out of them all, Mary Schweitzer did come up with an experiment that she ran, and she had several test subjects. She had control subjects, and then basically what she did, though, she took the hemoglobin of an ostrich, and she was trying to preserve proteins that are routinely found in blood. Now, these proteins normally have a half-life of 3 days to 90 days, depending on the protein that you're choosing. But she was able to preserve these proteins from 3 days to 2 years, or a little over 200-fold. But even though we have this in writing, and even though there's not a single paper out there that gives you more than a 200-fold increase on the possible preservation of these tissues, not a single one. They've never done the math. They've never figured this out. That it only gives them at the most 234,000 years. At the uppermost age that these bones can be, they can't be any older than 234,000 years, which certainly is not time for evolution. They say modern man has been around that long, so it's certainly not time for evolution as far as, let's say, a common ancestor between man and chimp. That can't happen in 234,000 years. So, what else do we have? They think that when I was a kid growing up, in school, they taught that Neanderthal, for instance, was an ancestor to mankind, modern man. He was a knuckle dragger. Well, now we know he wasn't a knuckle dragger. His brain capacity is bigger than ours. He did artwork just like we do. Denisovans built complicated jewelry. And they tried to say that these things now are cousins. They've already proven that it's not an ancestor. So now they're trying to say, okay, let's just write that off. They're cousins. Well, no, they're not cousins. How do we know they're not cousins? You see, this is something these little gentlemen and ladies in the audience don't know, and they're afraid to come up and have any part of. I'm going to put this link in here one more time. You see, we know. Come on in, guys. Let's have a scientific discussion. We know absolutely for a fact that Denisovans and Neanderthals interbred with one another, and they interbred with Homo sapien, and Homo sapien interbred with them. We know that. We have the DNA to prove that now. So what's this mean? Well, this is something that Nemesis doesn't get. None of these little fellows down here, these little millennials, they do not understand that this makes them the same species as us. Look up the biological definition, Nemesis, of the word species. Species means that you have like animals, like organisms that are capable of reproducing fertile offspring, interbreeding and reproducing fertile offspring. That's what a species is. So this proves that we are all the same species. There's no evolution there, and yet they try to say that there is evolution here, and that Neanderthals and Denisovans prove evolution. You know, evolution is racist. Early evolutionists went over to places like Africa and Australia, and they hunted and killed Aboriginals, decapitated them, and put their heads on displays as examples of evolution. Even the title talks about the favored species. In other words, mankind started off as black monkey-looking things, and then we evolved into white people. And now we're the favored species, and they were the savage races. You guys got to own that, man. That's the truth. So, you see, evolution is just full of hype and things that are simply not true. For a long time, they said, I would ask evolutionists, well, where did dogs and wolves come from? They said the dire wolf. The dire wolf is the first wolf. Well, no, it wasn't. Guess what? It's listed that way on all their phylogenetic trees. Ancestor to the dog and the wolf is the dire wolf. Well, no, it's not. We've got the DNA of the dire wolf. They are not the predecessors to the gray wolves and dogs. No, they're not. And we prove that now. So you see, when we can finally test all of your hypotheses, they prove to be wrong. I dare say most of you don't know what the difference is between abiogenesis and biogenesis. Most of you haven't got the slightest clue. Look at the comments that these guys keep making in the chat here. It's hilarious. They keep making these comments in chat. And yet, not a one of them will come up here and prove a thing that I've said wrong. Why? Because they can't. First of all, they don't know the subject. Second of all, they don't have the, there's nothing that I've said that is wrong. Here again, I will leave the link for you to come on up and step right on up. So you see, this is the problem with trying to have a discussion with internet atheists. They literally believe 1 + 1 = potato. They haven't got a clue what real science is. And these guys jokingly say that they gang stalk people and mass report them because they are protecting science. Protecting science. What a hilarious joke that is. Now, one of you are actually scheduled to come on. I believe it's the 6th, the 7th, the 6th at, I believe, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Her name is Kirsten. She's going to be coming on. Now, the reason I agreed to have Kirsten on is because she was civil. She knew how to speak as though she were an adult. She asked me if I would bring her on. Now, do I expect her to come on and be converted? No. Do I expect some questioning? Yeah. Do I expect softball pitches? No. But I don't care, you see. I'm inviting her on because I'm agreeing to have her on because she asked if she could come on and she was civil. So evidently, we're going to have a two-way discussion. Hawthorne says, I can't come on. I'm not an atheist. And I don't live on the internet. You do live on the internet. And okay, so you're an internet agnostic. Call yourself what you will. An internet evolutionist. You are someone who actually mass stalks people, mass reports them, and makes stupid little comments in the chat because you're not capable of an actual discussion. But that's okay. And Brother Bill, you can feel free to come on up too if you like, brother. And I know that you've had your experiences with atheists in the past, the internet atheists. I'm pretty sure that you know some who are cool people, easy to get along with. And, we all have friends of every sort, I would hope. But it's like their friend, Kirsten, that I'm going to be bringing on the 6th. I'm not judging her according to the company she keeps, although many would. I'm going to give Kirsten the chance to be an individual. And I'd really like to ask Kirsten, you seem to be an individual capable of some common sense and civility. So why are you hanging around with a bunch of goons? Do you actually endorse this sort of thing that you see them do? Somehow I can't picture you endorsing that, Kirsten. Now, maybe I'm wrong, and time will tell. But personally, I'd like to think that you're better than this, which is why I was so, glad to have you on. Glad to have you ask. Because I believe deep down inside you, there's something better than this. And I want people to see the distinction between you and them. So I do look forward to our conversation. And Oxfordshire, man, it is so good to see you here, brother. Thank you very much for dropping in. And if you'd like to come on in, I've put the link in the chat here. You can feel free to jump on in here too for a few minutes. We're not going to be on much longer. We've already been on about a half an hour. And it looks like our fellows here don't want to come on. So that's okay. They've had their chance. And you see what an internet atheist is. They're content to just do this in the chat section rather than come on and put my knowledge to the test or put theirs to the test. You see, When I began studying evolution decades ago, I'm going to tell you something. I didn't study it with a bias. I studied it with an open mind because if evolution would have proven true, it would not have hurt my faith in the slightest. Why? Because I believe that God is capable of doing things any way he chooses to do them. I believe that God could have chosen to use evolution. So I wanted to investigate. I wanted to see, did he? So during these last 5 decades, I've pulled a double study. I've studied both evolution and the scriptures to see where the facts lead in everything. And I'm firmly convinced now, that evolution is false. And I don't get my information from textbooks. I don't get my information from magazines. I don't get my information from creationist sites. I've got my information from the places that it counts. Peer-reviewed articles from peer-reviewed magazines. And it's these articles that prove evolution cannot possibly be. So, Oxfordshire man, how are you today, brother? Oh, okay. I'm sorry, brother. I will see you later then. Maybe you can drop in next time. I will be glad to have you. I saw you here for a little bit, and now you seem to be gone. So, Brother Bill, I want to thank you for dropping in. Everybody else who listened, I want to thank you for dropping in. And Connor, you can drop in anytime you like, along with Nemesis. I would really be glad to have that conversation with you guys. Jordan is not much of a debater. So, unfortunately, that's just the truth. There's not much to see from him. Ryan Potato Toucher, it's good to see you here, brother. Thank you very much for dropping in. And we're going to be doing a lot more content coming up, including Bible studies. And so I invite you to drop in during our Bible studies. Now, this is something that Nemesis would probably want no part of, because if you don't even understand evolution, and you don't even understand abiogenesis, and you don't even understand the findings of Craig Venter, you're not going to understand this. And hello, St. Tommy. It's good to see you, brother. Thank you for dropping in. Unfortunately, you caught the tail end of this, and we're about to sign off. Now, we are going to have a program tomorrow that I think you're going to find very interesting, brothers and sisters. Tomorrow's program is going to be on the book of Revelation and how I discovered that if you try to read this as it's normally taught in chronological order, it doesn't make much sense. But there is a way to read this to where everything falls together. Everything becomes much more understandable. Of course, you have to have a working knowledge of the Old Testament to understand the New, especially Revelation. But tomorrow we're going to go. I'm bringing on a special brother as a special guest host, and we're going to discuss how God has shown us the exact same thing, that the trumpets, the seals, the trumpets, and the vials apparently all end at the same time, because they all end with the return of the Lord and the reward of the saints, and a very frightened world. So tune in for that. I think you're going to enjoy it. And we're going to be scheduling some more this week. So look out for upcoming videos. And on the 6th, I'd like for you to tune in if you would. And we're going to have a special guest, Kirsten, who has hung with Nemesis for quite a while now. And I'm looking forward to having her on. I think you're going to enjoy that. So you guys have a great day. I want to thank you very, very much for dropping in. We love you guys. And I don't care if we agree or disagree on things. I love you guys. And I even mean this to my enemies. You guys make me laugh. You act like emotional 11-year-olds. And I feel sorry for you. Because most of you are truly so deep into Dunning-Kruger, you haven't got the slightest idea. So I'm hoping to get through to you guys, though, and to show you what you are not doing is protecting science. What you are doing is degrading yourselves time and time and time again, and showing how little you know. Truth in Christ, my brother, my friend, it's so good to see you. I just invited people to come in. Truth in Christ is the brother that's going to be with me tomorrow when we go into Revelation. And so I'm inviting everybody to drop in to see that. I think they'll have a good time. And my friend Tommy got blocked by Smokey. Now, Smokey Saint is not much of a saint, my friend. Smokey the Saint kind of reminds me of this Nemesis group. But that's for another program. So I want to thank you guys very, very much. You have a great day. Thank you so much for dropping in. This is Eric, a.k.a. Wolfbitten, and we are Hot Topics. I'm so very glad to have you today. Pray for us. We'll pray for you, and we love you with all our hearts. And we are glad to see you. We're so glad you dropped in. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. This is Eric signing off.